It was a dark evening, the city lights flickering like fading memories across the skyline. I remember sitting by the window, watching the rain trace fragile lines down the glass. Each drop seemed to carry a whisper of the past, echoes of laughter, shadows of regret, and faces I could no longer reach. The world outside was alive, but inside me there was only stillness. A kind of silence that doesn't just exist around you, but inside you, pressing against your chest until breathing feels like effort. I'd always believed I was strong, the kind of person who could rise after every fall. But that night, even my strength felt like a performance I was too tired to continue. The ticking clock mocked me, the hours blending into each other like a dream that refused to end. I kept thinking of everything I'd lost. Not material things, but pieces of myself I'd given away to people who never really stayed. Life has a strange way of teaching you, not through gentle lessons, but through storms that leave you trembling. I remember the first time I thought I had it all figured out, the plans, the confidence, the sense of direction. But somewhere along the line, reality tore through that illusion. It didn't happen suddenly. It was slow, like a candle burning down to its final inch. You don't notice the end coming until there's no light left. That evening, I walked out into the rain, letting it soak through my clothes as if it could wash away the weight I carried. The streets were empty, and every step echoed louder than it should have. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, a haunting reminder that somewhere else, someone was fighting their own battle. Maybe we all were. I lifted my head to the sky, water streaming down my face, unsure if it was rain or tears. I just knew I needed to feel something real. Anything that reminded me I was still alive. Sometimes the pain doesn't shout. It whispers. It shows up in small moments, when a familiar song plays, or when you pass a place that used to mean something. I kept walking, my shoes splashing through puddles, my thoughts heavier than the downpour. Every corner I turned felt like a memory I didn't want to revisit, yet couldn't escape. When I reached the bridge, I stopped. The river below looked like liquid glass, dark and endless. I leaned against the railing, watching the current move, calm on the surface, wild beneath. It felt familiar, maybe because that's what I had become, calm outside, chaos within. I closed my eyes and let the wind wrap around me, cold and sharp, like truth itself. That's when I realized, sometimes we don't need to escape the storm. We just need to stand in it long enough to remember who we are. During those quiet hours that followed, I found myself wandering without purpose, through empty streets, through heavier thoughts. The city had gone still, and in that silence I began to hear things I'd ignored for years. The sound of my own heart, weary but steady. The rhythm of the rain slowing to a soft drizzle. The faint hum of distant life, reminding me the world hadn't stopped even if I had. I sat on a park bench, drenched and trembling, and for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to just be. No pretending, no strength, no masks, just the raw, unfiltered truth of who I was in that moment. I thought about the people I'd lost, the chances I never took, the words I never said. They haunted me like unfinished songs, looping endlessly in my mind. But there was something freeing in facing them, in not turning away this time. Maybe healing doesn't happen in a burst of light. Maybe it's quieter, like dawn after a long, sleepless night. It creeps in slowly, in the pauses between tears, in the breaths you take when you thought you couldn't anymore. I watched the sky begin to lighten, a soft gray stretching across the horizon. It wasn't beautiful yet, but it promised that beauty would return. I pulled my jacket tighter and began walking again. My shoes squelched against the wet pavement, and each step felt like a small victory. Not because I was suddenly okay, but because I was still moving. And sometimes that's enough. I passed by familiar buildings, streetlights flickering out as morning crept in. The city, like me, was waking from its darkness. I thought about how strange life is, how it breaks you just to teach you how to rebuild, how it strips away everything false until only the truth remains. I used to think strength meant never falling apart. But now I understand. Real strength is being able to gather your broken pieces and still choose to move forward, even when no one's watching. As I crossed back over the bridge, The river no longer looked threatening. The same water that once seemed endless now looked like a mirror, reflecting the pale light of morning and the faint trace of my reflection. I smiled, a small, uncertain smile, but it was real. I didn't know what waited ahead, and maybe that was okay, because that night, in the quiet aftermath of the storm, I learned something simple yet profound. Sometimes, the journey isn't about finding answers. It's about learning to live with the questions, and for the first time in a long while, that felt enough.